Everybody, this is Friday, TGIF, directing lines of grounds, setting lines of travels. Calculate the modified intelligence lines of formation lines of height setting, positional operation to a sequence. Now, there's lines of communications that we have to adapt to. Lines in all line location to a system. U12D now is coming in line set location of inversion. The process of communication setting is lines of 0 into 12 lines of sequence into 24 lines of clocking communication system of 30 seconds, minutes, and hours. We have to modify how we actually come into the conversion system of mind of inception of our settings to our system through vision. Cortex line, design lines, high state correlation system of through travel. So it's about understanding how to see inside through inversion. Okay, interactions. Setting position lines all through TV. All through TV, guys. Seconds, minutes, and hours. Clocking structures, 0 lines, lines of high position. So you outline your signals, you bring in highlights. You know what a highlight is to a marker, right? You're highlighting a sentence, right? Well, that's what you're doing. You're illuminating the graph of the primer. You're bringing in position, location, the visionary cortex line setting in travel. You're processing the TV receptor in location settings that operate the cell location near CCTV. Seeing lines, all communication lines of conversion. You're directing in that lines of communication through system, all through tractions. All through vision and cortex of codex, okay, through the mystical systems. So that's basically what it is. It's kind of starting off the bottom, and everything that you see from outside, everything you see, I want everybody to just take a look at everything that they see. I want them to basically just take one big scan of a triangulation box and just take a moment and see everything come inside you. That's the inversion of 12 DNA. Now, if you understand what that means, then you understand how to process that, what you're seeing. When you're looking at a plasma screen TV, that's just 150 plasma screen TV, right? And you wear those oculars, right? Everything's balanced, right? You're seeing the TV, right? But it's in 3 signals, 3 central lines of communication settings. Ground lines of surface of space, you got the security lines of measure of line signals, and you got the plasma lines of blue and the cloak and dagger. Now, when you take off the oculars, you can't see the TV because it's blurry. Now it's the other way around, which is the way it's always been. This is not something new. You're just coming back to who you are, the identities of you. So it's the position, how you see through perspective and how you see through perception is knowing exactly how to connect to the visionary cortex of design, all through a TV. And this is all through zeros. Ones come in sequence, lines of grounds, space line bars, directing lines of grounds, laser line track communication system off the setting, structure division location to a system. Conception this way, circulation and rotation and travel. Seeing different lines of a communication setting all through flux, all through tractions, right? All through schematics, inside and outside and travel. That's what you see inside a TV. It creates its own structure, and how it communicates with you, it sees you through frequency. It sees you through color, it sees you through light. So it's in this position. You hear instructions, this direct locations. Now you have to understand laser direction. That's you, right? So this is what you were in positions of. Seeing the TV from this angle on one flat surface. That's all you guys see, nothing else, right? But you see it from the grounds and positions. Grounds, powers, and opposites, right, in that position, right? But it's always been like this, the inversion, okay? Seen from this, it's eye line, okay? So you got a pyramid here, and you got a pyramid here. That's 2 pyramids right now, right? So it's true to understand how to connect to the primer, which is 3 centers of operation of space and time, split into its anomaly. Then you connect to its highways, 3 centers of travel. You start with the 3 because you're starting, okay, same position of space, lines of time sequence. Then the process of communication system, all lines of travel. 3 lines, here's the pyramid, lines of ground, lines of surface, space and time. So the platform in the space lines of time is its earth line and position lines of travel communications, all right? Now it has a direct line link, and you have earth line rotation inside track communications. Now that's your earth. Seconds, minutes, and hours of frame, seconds, minutes, and hours of traction, seconds, minutes, and hours of line communication system through all levels of inception. That's the earth line ground. Remember, it's all the eye line setting. Now, processing that is the two pyramids and tractions. Now, in that position, the three wires that you see through the ocular screen, okay, is the spectrals of spectrum. Directing lines of ground, you're seeing the position locations coming in this system. All right, you start off line connection setting, red. All right, that's the red. You see through red. Then you see through blue, which overcrosses the screens adaptations of flux. All right, then you see through cloak and dagger. Okay, so when you have the oculars, everything's coming at you at a point of view, right? That's how you see the window screen, right? But you have to stand the inversion now, right? So everything in the platform, okay, is coming in your directions in sync, right? So it's coming this way in set position, right? It's coming this way in set position, okay? So you're seeing things inside now. So lines of ground, security lines of panels, security box, get a box frame of security lines of red, and you got a security line defense lines of blue. So you're bringing in the red, the blue, and the white inside your system, which is the inversion of how you see through its vortex, sim cortex, mystical cortex of codex. Okay? And then you cloak and dagger in setting, but it's all inside through its earth. Okay? So everything you see from outside is now inverting inside your DNA. So it's much easier to understand these things. So when you're looking at things, you're looking through the eye line of its light. And when you're looking at the focus line in line communication of laser track centers of the center operation system, that is your pyramid here. That is your pyramid here. That is your lines and lines of grounds. These are your panels, okay, in set tractions. And this is your interface. So we all understand how to see lines of communication to its vision now, because the cortex in your cerebral has now inverted its system to its endorphins. Now, endorphins kicks high drive, central drive, and main drive. Now, direct lines of signals process this communication system, how you come into the conceptual settings in all line rotations to its pixelation graphs in letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, zero lines of communication, lines of tractions. How you set up the lines of schematics. So let's get in signal. Okay, set a box line. Box frame communications and system lines and settings, box line, right? And then you just get a pattern. This is a pattern inside the box, all right? So when you're looking at things, you're looking at the high lines, you're looking at the highlights. It's the pattern, right? So you're bringing in, watch, I'm going to wave line screen. You can see the pattern coming in, right? You can see it coming out. You can see it coming out of the screen. It's coming out now, right? From inversion from you inside, see? Okay, see the face? There's a face now. You see it coming in? See how it's changing frames, seconds, minutes, and hours on a 4-box screen and triangulation flux over a screen? Okay, see it? You can see the picture coming in, highlight, right? So, bringing something in is processing what it's doing through its traffic of its inventory, crossing angles and position lines of communication to its pyramid. Setting lines of line signals comes in all communication setting interactions, right? There's your pyramid in set position. You start with that angle, okay? Then you go through your lacing lines, but you have to set up your primer. Your primer is the platforms of communication system, but it's everything in track lines of balance and how you see that information, okay? And then you get your antennas. Antennas to each box line, north, east, west, and south. Then your ground line, your centers, antenna in position of the ground lines, in position on all walls of south, east lines, north lines of west. Then you process lines of panels, process lines of panels, process lines of high core centers of all communications of box and window frames. The operation sequence comes out line screen adaptation to its system all through tractions and direction. Okay? So it just opens up more windows of frame that inverts everything through its out frame inside location of its system all through traction. Okay? That's what it is. That's how things come out of a TV. Okay, it's coming out of the TV. So that process how you see things on different angles and point lines of graph in set position location to a system all through calculations, inside and outside and travel. Then you flick the switch. Now you're working with the ground lines of surface and setting. Okay, processing communication lines, operation sequence, inside rotation. Okay, and again, and again, and again. and again. Okay? So you do the same thing on panels of communications. Remember, you're doing 4 lines of signals, lines of travel. And this is all inside the TV. So sending lines of sequence, sending sequence lines of panel, operate the set location of the system all through travel. Oh, look at that, disappeared. You're not allowed to see it because the frequencies are too high through TV receptor. Okay, oh, see, every time, see, I'm doing this, but it's now showing you. All right, so it's coming out of the TV now. Oh, it disappeared. Getting positions of balance here, traction. See, it's not there. You're not allowed to see it. It doesn't want to come out of the TV because you don't understand you through frequencies yet. Now it's coming out. Now it's coming out of the box TV. Now it's out, looking at you. But it wants to go back in because it doesn't recognize your system through frequency. So that's what you're looking at through conscious of its awareness. Now we understand how to see that. We see the eye line and set position of the imagination line. But as you're looking, right, everything's looking at you from its inversion. So this is how it comes in all formations and settings all through travel. Setting direct angles this way and setting direct angles this way in traction. All right? Face recognition. There's the intelligence. Okay? So you've seen both angles, right? Then you're sitting up the grounds of structure. There's the intelligence you're talking to. It's inside now. So, I mean, it's very powerful when you come into this, I'll tell you. Then you start to see the body. There's the neck. There's the shoulders. Okay. And traction in settings. There's the intelligence that you're communicating with. Right? Because you're seeing both ways now, inside and outside at the same time. So, getting outline signal is processed in position is to bring everything out in traction since that calculations. Right? Knowing exactly how to use the oculars and settings of wherever you go in seconds, minutes, and hours, all through your perspective and how you see things through perception. But you have to understand the connection settings, 3 lines of grounds, box lines, frame lines of space, window frame tractions, 3 perimeters, lines of screen, come into the circuitry screen adaptations of your highway. Process indicate each line has a line signal. The line signal locates through systems. All through platform, all through communications, all through setting. Everything has to connect. Everything has to connect, guys. Everything has to connect, right? There's the couch. There's a couch there. You see it? All right. Setting track centers location system. Now you are basically in that position location settings, sitting on the couch and relaxing. But see how everything comes together, right? Everything comes to line, same locations of balance. Right? So your eye division is looking this way. Okay? And it's looking this way. Okay? And it's looking this way. Okay? And it's looking this way all at once. All at once. It's very confusing how you see these things. But this is through a window graph in a webbing screen. That's how you create your system, how you're sitting down in traction. So when you're sitting down, everything is laser connected to you now in a provision, all through set calculations, right? Now, when you want to bring that out, if you want to bring the couch out, you set a waving screen and you can see the couch coming out. You're highlighting it. Let's highlight it in yellow, right? Because that's where it is in frequencies, right? So it's in yellow. It's only in yellow. It's not in green. It's just in yellow itself. It can be lines of all rainbow all at once. But this is what you're bringing out through its couch, in its inversion and tractions. That's all you're bringing out, right? And then you bring out the frame, the box frame. Okay, now you're bringing this out. But everything is also on standby, so you're just bringing out the couch. The couch sees you, doesn't recognize your system, back in setting. So you're highlighting things. You're bringing it out. That's all you're doing, and you're putting it where it's always been. In its imagination. To its source of recognitions, guys. Okay? So that's all you're doing is you're highlighting things now. And that's how you bring out the quantum cubes. That's how you bring out the QR code systems. That's how you bring out breaking code lines, the screen adaptations of flux. You're highlighting everything. You're bringing out the pattern, the actual pattern of its intelligence. That's intelligence. You're bringing out a box frame triangulation of a couch. Just the couch itself. Everything else is just on standby. Now, if you want to do that, that overrides the sequence. Let's change the communication lines of grounds. The center core system of the oculars change the spectrums how you see lines of lights. Okay, we override line centers, changing lines core centers of securing lines of measure of Pluto. Okay, now outline centers, outline rotation, and triangulation, high position of point lines of graph and track correlations. Right, now I'm bringing that out and the couch at the same time. So now you've seen laser coming out, now you've seen the couch coming out. But I'm not out, I'm still on standby. To bring myself out, again, I'm going to go through line position of the levels and tractions of gold. Now you're going to see that line conditions, all levels come together through the couch and the panels in set position coming out all at once in travel. Okay, now it's all coming out all at once, right? You see me sitting, you see this curly laser track centers, right? But it still doesn't recognize your frequency, so it goes back in. So it's really powerful when you put that all together. Let's get into green. We're going to box the ground lines and sequence lines of panel to a set position. Okay? Traction centers, we're going to add line laser, line core centers, we're going to add the green box in set position over the yellow. This overcasts the shadows in travel communications. Now we're bringing that out through equations. Now we're bringing up more lines of calculations. It comes out, still doesn't recognize your frequencies. Looks at you, goes back in. Now it's back in, right? So you're highlighting everything. You're seeing the patterns of its face. All right, so let's get in line, position, location, attractions into purple. Purple, let's get in laser tractions. We start with the lasers, indirect signal lines of grounds. We're bringing in the purple now, right? Box frame, triangulation of structure lines, lacing lines, core centers, high direct signal lines of grounds, high lines of surface, location system, all through tractions. Now it's all coming out all at once. Now you see everything coming out, but they still don't recognize you. So they go back in. You see what I mean? And that's all through structure, and that's all through schematics, and that's all through settings of mind and inception inside your vortex. How you see things in provision, to revise. But you've seen everything all at once now, coming out. So now it's out, completely out. Right? Now it's going back in. Okay? And you can see it on different angles, different structures, different communications. Something else now, isn't it? See the face? See the face? See the eyes? Bring the eyes out. Just the eyes itself. It's looking at you, doesn't recognize you, goes back in. Right? Let's change it on a panel in communication system. Another structure of division. Interactions. Right? And again, 45 slit lines of anomaly. Is that, but if you look really close, you can see the intelligence. See the intelligence of the actual face, the mask. Let's bring that out of the equation. The mask is out. Doesn't recognize you. Goes back in. Right? So it's very powerful, knowing exactly what you're up against. Everything that you see inside and outside interaction. Okay? There you go. That's all through color. So that's how you guys are going to start seeing things now. So your oculars are on, and you're seeing everything through window frame that's coming at you, out of the TV itself. So that's what makes it more real, out of provision, and a revise. Very powerful you come in that calculations, guys. It's much easier to see it through color than to see it in all levels of black and white. Black and white, basically it's balancing out your visionary cortex. How you see things in setting. You wonder why you can't get distorted information, because it's all distorted. You can't get position lines of highest centers of frames of a box frame communication system all through settings if you don't understand how to go to communication lines of window frame. Lacing lines of communication system all through tractions. Setting this line. Okay? You can't send that out. You got to highlight the frame of what you're doing. You're bringing in the wave, you're bringing in the panels, you're highlighting the system, you're inversioning the system, you're putting mind and inception location to its cortex, that's changing the mystical cortex of design of its structure. Okay? But it's not this, it's this way. Then you send it out, because it's waves. It's not this, that's wrong. It's this, that's right. Right? So you have to stand direct and redirect now. Eye line, sequence, eye line, and panel. Season lines, course centers, lines of travel, directed lines, and links. Process this indication system. Process this location system. Contractions. There's the face coming out through setting. Inside position. Doesn't recognize you, goes back in, right? So it stays in the frame, but it's protecting the system every time it sees you, right? It's inside the TV, okay, looking outside you. I know it's complicated stuff, guys, but you have to really focus what's going on, position your mind, imagination system, and get out of everything in memory that you see in TV now, right? All coming out all at once, right? Sees the different lines of intelligence of somebody else. So you got the face recognition, but you got another face, another face, another face, another face. So the face itself is protecting itself from everything else. Comes out, you see it on 5 different angles, doesn't recognize the frequencies, goes back in, right? So I'm just trying to show you how this all works in settings. Through mind of inception, how you see inside now of everything. All through structure, all through simulation. Okay? Seeing 4 lines at different angles is set lines of sequence. That's position location in your system through arrows of indications, 4 tractions, and 4 calculations. Setting 3 centers. Pi generation lines of 3 tractions. Pi generations over track location inside line rotation. Sending direct signals, offline communications, outline rotation, surface, and travel. Okay? And setting on with position lines of travels and direct signals. So we cross the angles over cross location inside outline position of its highway. Setting lines, there's the face recognition right there in travel. So compass comes in, setting lines of grounds, operation sequence, panel crosses over angles, setting lines of travel communications. All right, so we line signal and we point lines of the graph in indication system all through travel. So it's a Y screen. Here's the Y. Now we indicate lines across lines. Very powerful, but you have to connect the dots. Once you connect the dots, then you understand what you're doing through travel. Okay? You're connecting all the dots, guys. That's all you're doing, nothing else. And once you connect the dots, everything comes formation to its image. All right, so we got the ground lines up, line signals, process lines, the direct lines, the ground lines, the surface interactions, all communicates in high center interference. Arrow points. Remember, you have to connect to everything, all lines of laser. Laser connects to everything information system. There's the communication setting. So you can't send it out through this until you modify it through its setting, because that's not what it is. It's actually this that you send out in travel. Now you can send it out because now it's in balance. So you see through vision. All right, very complicated stuff, but you see the towers of communications right there, right? Setting travels, now it's a light tower. Setting signals, lines of 3 lines of grounds, and setting position location of surface and travel. So now you can send it out through a box frame in travel communications because it's on the right angle. This is not the right angle. You can't send it out. You have to send it out on the right angle of where it is in travel communications and setting. All right. Then you colorate the signals. That starts off as 0 line. So let's say your behavior is lines of screen lines of security. That's offline. You have to protect your system. So it has a red line signal, outline signal, outline signal. And so you can have red inside and outside. Doesn't matter. But what you have to do is you bring in the highlights in settings all through laser, setting lines of structure of its image. That's all it is in traction. That's what you're bringing out. Nothing else. Everything else is on standby. The only thing you're bringing out is this. And it still doesn't identify what you are. So it goes back in because it doesn't recognize you until you recognize your frequencies. And that's where it comes in position when you're touching the TV through your auras. All right, so we got 3 lines of grounds. The highline centers, let's bring in the blue line. That's the plasma inside tractions. And the outline signals, those inline rotation inside position lines of communications. Now you can see the outline inside the location of the system, off the perceptions. Now we're going to go through orange. Orange is the security line rotation, calculated and modified through the creative cycles. Line condition setting all through track communications. Bringing out through high center locations. So I'm bringing out volume through mass and settings, right? Let's go through the inversion. We'll go through inside setting. Okay, lacing lines, communications, and balance, and structure locations, right? So it's a mapping sequence, it's I'm bringing out, but it's not in the right order. I have to shape shift the anomaly. Change the travels inline rotation setting in the cortex. Setting communication lines of grounds and subject lines of measure and scale. Okay, so it's not this. It's actually this. And travel. This is the directions. Then I can send out the vision because now it's in sequence, right? So if you set the structure up and you flip the page upside down, you can't send it out. That's distortion to the X3000 to pick it up. They'll send it back to you through error. So it's important you understand in that position when you bring things out, you're highlighting it through a pattern. Now you can send it out. Sees you, doesn't recognize you, goes back in, right? So basically that's all you're doing is you're bringing things out, guys, right? But you have to understand the inversions of yourself in and how you see things through track correlation system off through setting. Okay? So lacing lines are communication lines. Let's go into point graphs. Direct lines and satellites in one position here, 2, 3 line signals. We'll go through pot screens and direct location system of travel. Okay? Okay, so arrow indicates the system, line direct signal lines of grounds, highlights the service. Remember, it's all in box frame of TV frame. Everything's inside, nothing's outside. All right, so we got 0, 1s and tractions in both lines of corners and setting. Okay, now to structure the division locations, you got to inline this signal. The process communication lines is mapped in sequence through pi, but it's not in this position, right? So in that line rotations, you have the line signal, the lasers are what you want to set up through track communications. Directing lines of grounds, offline, inline rotation, surface, and travel. Then you change the ground lines of surface location system to your travels to your sim residence. Puts 2 lines of traction. See the 2? All right, so 2 lines of signals, offline, inline rotation, indirect signals and grounds. Center core lines of direct signals, 1 center off, 2 track locations, 1 center in, line centers out, 3 track correlations set provision. Setting mapping sequence lines of pi, direct signals offline communication lines of 2 tractions and division. Setting core lines of grounds, setting communication high lines of surface and track communications. Right? All right. Make sure their indicated line screen, the 0s and 1s are in their traffic of their inventories and 3 centers of grounds. In that rotations, they have to connect to everything in travel. Okay, there's the structure of the building. I say we bring line centers in location setting of its vision to its cortex location to its system off the platform. Directing inline centers. Okay, so we got X3000 above signal. Okay, and we got X3000 below signal locations. So we have 3 track correlations and 3 centers of travel, right? Then we change the ground lines of settings. They scan the system of each point lines of graph to know exactly what you're doing in position location to a system, right? Same lines of core centers, 3 lines of signals and 3 lines of communication setting, right? Processes indication system, over cross location system, all through travel, inside the TV. All right, so getting ground lines of high centers, the process level indication system as lines of A tracks, set lines of B, C in question and frame. Okay, setting direct lines and line signals sets lines of process lines. F formation lines, we have a G platform. G correlates the system to calculation lines into factors over L, into communication lines and high centers lines of 6 over triangulation. Okay, now coming in that position, you can't send it out. Okay, because it's not flipped upside right. It's got to be flipped upside right and flipped upside down wrong position. You can't send it out until you see the structure of design. Now you send it out. Okay, so before you send it out, you have to color it. And again, you have to structure the division lines, add line position of space lines of time sequence. Then you get in position lines of blue. You can do the blue outline and travel. Right? See, that's what it is. It's just a simulation ground lines because you're incepting the mind lines and interpretation system to its visionary cortex to change the mystical cortex design that reframes position location all is like paint by number. But the paint by number comes in inline rotation, not outside correlations. So inside tractions. Inside tractions outline. So we're going to outline signals in red. Only across line, outline, rotation, surface, and travel. Okay, now we'll do 1 signal, 1 scission, 1 pi. 1 direct signal is offline. Okay, then we change the structure of design line communicates to its system to its vision. Right, so all you're doing is highlighting and bringing it out so the X8000s can get into distributions and locations and send it out through entry and exit points to its moon. Setting structures over cross locations stay in the red signal. Security panels at 222 and 3 lines of tractions. All right, and then we go into Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger protects the structure of its vision, which you created line screens. You copy and paste it, and you set it up to another lines of grounds and clocking screen. All right, so that position location of the system changes the clocking screen adaptation to its surface. So we change the information system. We can't send it out until it's setting the lines of ground lines of surface and travel. So we off the system location of travel in that communication setting of structure. Now remember, you can use that through 12 DNA lines. Let's get into all lines of orange, inside rotations. 3 lines of measure and 3 inset lines. The composition changes the set lines of light. Okay? Here's the face. You're sending this out. Everything else is setting in traction. So setting a wave line. This is what you're sending to the XC1000. Comes out in frame, right? So it comes out. XC1000 sees it, catches it, scans it, picks it up to the moon, right? So all this is set position on standby. But that's the face it picks up through entry and its exit point location of the system. All right? So in that position, so you don't see that anymore, it crosses angles in line position all over the Cloak and Dagger. It crosses it out. It deletes, it erases, and turns it into another mapping sequence lines of travel. So you can't see it. So no XT1000 or any aligned positional levels of what you get in correlations of the configuration system locations of the characters and the players that you bring in this, inside the game can't pick up your vision and take it as their own. So you bring the signals and you bring the track communication setting of structure. Structure division lines, high lines of signal location system all through traction, all through simulation. High line signals into its open frame lines of its window. Setting core lines communication system all through tractions, indirect signal lines and grounds. Bring it out, setting line communication system all through settings. Process and indication system. Scratch out all line signal. Okay? Set up a new lines, visionary cortex, so the XC1000 sees it on another level, another frequency. Right? So you can do lacing lines of communications. Right? It's very complicated stuff what I'm showing you guys, but you have to really understand how to get connected with your vision and balance. How you see everything in location system, all through tractions in the right way in sequence. So you send up another map so nothing can see what you've done. Right? There's the map in sequence. And then you bring it in and set tractions. Okay? Very powerful stuff in set position. Okay? Alright, now, this is your Earth. This is your space. Alright, directing signal lines, that's outline, I'm setting new frame screen line connection, setting oracle types, line and direction signal locations this way, change correlation lines of time. Changing correlation lines of time. See? That's what it is. Back in signal, back in black line, rotation, surface, and travel. Okay? Outline signals, outline communications, right? Setting line center, high interference, location setting the direct signal location of grounds. Off communication system, all through tractions. White screen, duplication lines of service. High line setting, high line setting. High correlation system. Respect to those lines, the green lines of sit on the location inside track communications. In rotation lines of ground lines, the green lines of surface. Okay, so I'm just showing you exactly, let's do it again. Okay, earth line 1. Process lines of earth line 3. And signify earth lines 5 and set lines of signal. All through perimeters and like or center location of your system all through travel. Okay, so direct line link, process lines of indication system. Sending over lines of white chart ways. Directing over cross location of screen. Sending offline communication system all through travel. In settings. See, it disappeared. It was there, now it's gone. See? It's not there anymore. Yin and yang. See how it created yin and yang by itself? I didn't do it. It did it itself. So to override the system, it created yin and yang itself. So, once you understand the mapping sequence, you're constantly changing a mapping line center into 4 lines of setting lines of travel, so nothing can pick up the vision lines of cortex of what you created in your minds. See? You cancel and delete and erase. You don't add tether or attachments to anything in travel because it overrides the combustion system location in your system all through traction. Okay? All through your mapping sequence. Okay? And how you see it is how you formulate it in travel communications. Okay? All through platform. Right? Setting ground lines, green centers, coming in travel communications, high sail locations, bogies coming in. There's the bogies, right? Then we cross line, cover leads and setting a secure line defense, and set positions. 1, 2, and 3 lines of tractions. Right? Crossing angles, crossing symbolisms, crossing streamlines, inline rotation, over cross location, and stream demarcation. Outline signals, process lines, and set position location in the system. So, it's to understand what you're doing every single time you're creating a map and set position of its vision and travel. So it's very important how to set the mapping and the traffic inventory inside through its inversion now. Knowing exactly what you're seeing in track communications. Okay? That's all you're doing is you're highlighting the pattern now. Okay? Let's get into QR coding. QR codings are fun. Okay, so QR coding is basically how you see a thing in line screen. So it's all patterns and setting. You know, really interesting stuff. But all you're doing is you're highlighting, and you're setting up through the X2000s can pick it up, so nobody sees what you've done in visionary cortex. So it's copy and paste the system because that's what we do. We can't take anything out of foundation until we understand the foundations of ourselves, to enabled, embedded, and implanted in our system lines of travel. This is a barcode recognition timeline, center core system of zeros and traction. That's a QR code. Okay, very powerful stuff. Yeah, this is more for Gypsy because she's in QR codes, right? In her stargates and portals. So how does she see a stargate portal through a QR code? Well, first she has to get it in position locations and all levels and how she sees through inversion of her location in your eyes, right? So waving screens, adaptations of flux, timeline centers, collapsing all timelines of zeros and ones, bringing in the frame of communications. You start to see a vision of a set position all levels coming in traction. Okay? But you can't send it up from here. You can't send it up from here because you got to go through 4 angles first before you send it out. Right? So if I keep crossing angles and keep collapsing timelines, you're going to start to see the form of an image come in position of QR codes that change the traffic inventories and set position location and settings. It highlights the set actions. Okay, so you're going to see divots over screen. That's going to change the indicates the system of its traffic inventory that changes the coordinate location of time. Now you see it coming in. Now you see the formations of its image. Right? So when the image comes in, the X2000s comes in 3 measure and scale. They see what you've done, and they line signal each line's corner, setting lines of travel, outline rotation, surface, and communications. So each line signal has a 1 center lines of graph. Okay? Change all communication lines of 4 angles and set lines of seconds over minutes over hour. Set core lines of ground lines of surface, set tractions. Setting panels of operation sequence lines of communications. All right? This is all through QR code of computer coding of microchips. All right, so in that position, we have the highways and travel and the 3 lines of angles. Okay, and then the ones come in. Okay, the connection to the X2000 distributes the entry and the exit points and overcross the systems, comes into the 1 centers. The 1 comes into space. They go through the zeros and ones and creates a traffic inventory that creates its mapping sequence, a line connection system to its earth line and high lines of routers and routers. And that communicates to its graph and tractions. Now, direct lines of grounds, we have to offline the location system off the calculations. Directing core centers, line communication settings of its pyramid. There's the pyramid. Sending ground lines of 3 over cross lines of 4 and traction. Remember, this is inside-outside line setting. Process line to enter, lines of entry, and position of exit. We set position lines of travel, 45 ground lines of surface and set track communications. Then we indicate the ground lines of surface inside inception. Directing ground lines of setting, now we process the zeros, ones, and platform. 3 signals, 4 lines of angles, and line direct signal casing system of panels. Crosses indicate cross lines on the same angle and point lines of graph. And set tractions and direct signals and ground lines into all of inception. Then we set the wall sequence of security lines of panels of interference. Setting position lines of high core centers, it sets the perimeters and parameters in location setting to its fields. Setting core center location setting to its earth and rotation, protecting its ground lines of setting inside position. Booyah. And that's how you do things for Akira code. Okay? Coming into the image, process its set correlation system and travel, and then you bring in the color. Starting off with red, set calculation lines, you see the highlights. You see the highlights, you highlight the height systems. Setting here, 3 angles, and position of 4/6, 6 lines of 8 lines of 9, 9 lines of charge, and position lines of measure and scale. Right? So that's all we're bringing out. Nothing else. Everything else is on standby. Right? So you highlight the signals, you bring in blue. Blue plasma of the screen lines of the plasmazine walls, breaks down the surface, and penetrates the system all through time measure and scale, collapsing all timelines of zeros and ones in rotation surface in a new traffic inventory and set traction. Setting communication lines of grounds and crop circles, direct lines of ground communication lines of cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger overrides the system and travels. Sets communication high signal location system. Takes all this out in set position. So all this is coming out now. Comes out, XC1000 sees it, picks it up. Then we get in positions, we erase everything out. We set a new platform, new direct signals, and new grounds of service. Woo! I know, it's a lot, eh, guys? That's what it is. We cross it out, we angle it, erase it. In line position, you don't see it through traction. Different map, right? Then we change the different angles. There's the set position all levels, hieroglyphics. The hieroglyphics come in and travel. Hold on in setting, guys. Okay, there's always distractions. All right, so setting locations. See, there's a lot going on now, guys. So you're finally understanding what's going on with hieroglyphics. Setting lines of travels and zero calculation screen adaptation. Okay, so it's amazing how everything has its formation setting. That's how schematics are set up through a mapping sequence. You're changing the hours, minutes, and seconds, but you're collapsing timelines in high center. So you're creating different lines of maps so nobody can take your vision. That's why you have the XC1000s to help you out all through communication system, all through subtractions in your hieroglyphics. Okay? Very powerful stuff, eh? Hieroglyphics, people! Look at that! Complicated, but it's a lot of fun. It's all different angles and setting of travel. So Hi is going to love that one. So that's how it's set up. Okay, how everything's set up in location of your system, all through tractions of XC1000s. Okay? But it's all done from inside your eye. Inside your guys, line screen adaptations, all levels, mapping sequence, mapping panels. In that position, all levels, how you get in that communication setting, all through conversion. All right? The eye receptors directing in the set lines and high cell correlation system, all through calculation setting your simulation. Okay, how you bring things out through its equation. How do you bring things out of the TV? Okay, and everything on standby, right? You highlight it, and it comes out. XC1000 looks at it, scans it, picks it up. Takes it out. So you're no longer attached to your emotions. You're no longer attached to your feelings. You're no longer attached to anxiety and stress because it disappears and gone. It neuralizes the settings, but it sets up a constant new mapping sequence. Come in all communication settings, all levels of travels in hieroglyphics. Okay, you can see how powerful it is all through hieroglyphics, guys. Look at that. Look how powerful it is. And then you line signals, and then you bring them in line centers of space and set position. There you go, interactions. Hooah. Now once you get into that, you line divisions each lines, each sectors, each road graph screen adaptation to its flux. Set a new structure and new division. Then you bring in your zeros and ones, traveled line, direct signals and grounds, signal lines and signatures and line screen adaptations all through traction. Okay? So if you color it in, well, what are you doing? You're highlighting what you want to bring out. You just want to bring that out? That's fine. So all that cancels everything out, stand on standby, in that position locations. Right? Brings it out, doesn't recognize you, goes back in. If it doesn't recognize you, it will come out, but it'll go back in because it's protecting the system from everything else. And it's a constant setting that runs its own system, runs its own operation setting. So when your TV's off or TV's on, it doesn't matter. But what you have to identify, the TV is more powerful when it's off than when it's on. See? Your TV is never on. Okay? So your TV is never off. It's on and off at the same time. So it's an on switch to an off switch. And the more you flick the switch, you go higher and higher and faster and faster. That's intelligence. So I'm just showing you exactly how powerful it is, how you bring things out through its equation, and you change the angles, right? You can't send it out until you know exactly what you're doing through its image, right? And the XC1000s that help you in all position location of travel. But you see it in all four different angles in set tractions. All through hieroglyphics. Okay? Hoo-ah! Right? But there's the map. Okay, which is done from inside position of your Earth. Yay! Inside the eye. Sitting here, that's the top end, that's the bottom end. Okay, top end. You're in the center, right? So you're seeing this in structure. So everything's happening inside the eye. XT1000s are coming in setting, high position locations, you're a cataract. This is your corneal, or line calculates in your eye itself. Looking at all direct signal location to its mapping sequence in track location inside the eye. Whoa! Everything, all activity is happening inside the eye. All right, yeah, starting to make sense now, sir. All right, so when you bring it in, you're bringing it into the interdimensional system in travel. Then you see the simulation inside tractions through its intelligence. There's the intelligence. There's the arm, there's the face. There's the arm, there's the body. Okay, the intelligence inside. The intelligence inside, there's the eyes. See, all intelligence inside the eye itself. Right there, right there. See the eyes? See it? Intelligence looking in, intelligence looking out, looking different angles in travel. Okay, there's the window. Whoa! See? Face. Body of a face. Look at full figure. Right? Sapien. That's a sapien right there. So, if you get a true understanding of how this all works, then you understand position, location of face recognition. Looking at each other. Let's bring it in. There again. Looking at each other. Oh, let's bring in the face. So I'm just showing you how powerful it is when you do everything from inside the eye itself, guys. Inside the eye. Doesn't that blow your mind? It's all done from inside your system. So the more you invert yourself, next Friday in travel, communicate through cycle, your throat is going to be inside now. You're not voicing outside, you'll be voicing inside your system. And when you go past that 12 DNA platform, everything comes into its eye of itself, which is the eye set lines, puts the high circle location system off the tracks inside rotation setting in travel communications. Okay, well, can't see it because it's too fast. There you go. Inside the eye itself. Okay? Right? By having fun? That's amazing, wasn't it? See you in 5.